Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this afternoon's ceremony. I am Master Sergeant Ann Mitchell from the 455th Expeditionary Force Support Squadron, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. On behalf of Brigadier General Mark Kelly, Commander, 455th, I would like to welcome you to today's ceremony. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to Chief Master Sergeant Raymond Colon Lopez, the Command Chief Master Sergeant, United States Central Command, Southwest Asia. Today we are gathered to start the remembrance ceremony of 7 servicemen who paid the ultimate sacrifice during Operation Anaconda in 2002. On September 11, 2001, 2,977 individuals died during the Twin Tower attacks. Since then, 6,836 have paid the ultimate sacrifice in support of the global war on terrorism. Today we are here to remember those who fought in Operation Anaconda, right here in Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Master Sergeant Chris Young from the 83rd Expeditionary Rescue Squadron, who is here with the team on Bagram Airfield on March 4th, 2002.
Can everybody hear me okay? I saw this thing, it kept moving, and I don't want to do this. First, I'd really like to thank the 5-6 Club for setting this up. It was an incredible thing for the team to arrive here and see that this was going to happen. Once word got out that I was here and that I was part of the operation, they allowed me to be part of the planning, and pretty much from that moment on, that we kind of turned it into what it is now. As you guys look at what's going on around you, the thing to understand is, as much as we joke around, this is still a war. And so you have to stay on your feet, got IDFs, got bad guys all over the place. So one of the things I want to start this off with is the PJ Creed, because it's important to understand where everybody came from on this operation. So it is my duty as a pararescueman to save life and to aid the injured. I must be prepared at all times to perform my assigned duties quickly and efficiently, placing these duties before personal desires and comforts. As Master Sergeant Mitchell said, I was a staff sergeant running all CSAR operations out of Bagram here in 2002. We were covering Special Operations Forces, Coalition Forces, and Conventional Forces simultaneously. The team arrived from the 38th Rescue Squadron in January of 2002. There was myself, 5 other PJs. Once we were assigned here, we had 2 combat controllers were assigned to the team as well. And from that point, we were covering the Quick Reaction Force and the Combat Search and Rescue Forces simultaneously. With that, we had an incredibly crazy flying schedule. We would fly through the night with task force. We'd come home, we'd sleep a couple hours, we'd wake up, we'd go fly with the Brits for a couple hours. We'd come back, we'd sleep a couple hours, we'd go fly with the 101st for a couple hours, come back, catch some more Zs, wake up, fly with task force again that night. So, as you can imagine, there was no such thing as crew rest back then. One of the other big differences that we had to deal with between now and then is there were landmines. There were landmines everywhere. When you all look at where the gyms are right now, this entire area was mined in front of you. We had no perimeter security. When the sun went down at night, the gunship showed up. Halfway through the night, one gunship relieved another gunship. Sun came up and they went home. That was all the security that we had here at the very beginning. Caddy corner right over there, we had to burn our own poop, because that was another thing we had to do. So anytime you all are complaining about the Cadillacs, remember, at least you don't have to burn it. And we lived right here in this tower. We lived on the far side where that new structure is. On this side of the tower was the 274th Forward Surgical Team. Pretty much it's the new version of a MASH unit, for those of you all who don't know what one of those are. We had no running water at all. The only time that we were actually clean was when we were using baby wipes. We actually found out that the aloe impregnated baby wipes were much better than anything else. However, when you got around the Rangers, they all complained that we smelled like lavender, so that was something we had to deal with. The mines here were so prevalent that they flew in a canine mine sweeping team from Bosnia. What they would do is they would put the dog on a 20-foot lead. The dog would go out whenever he would key off of something, then the EOD tech would come up and check on it. Shortly after they arrived, there was an incident, and true to absolute American form, the first question out of everybody's mouth is, the dog okay? Yes, the dog was okay. Ironically, what happened? The dog keyed off of a mine. The EOD tech stepped to the side, and when he did, he detonated the mine. So we ended up treating him as well. One of the other things that happened is we had a logistics barn right over here with crates stacked on top of each other. One of the crates fell off. The corner of the crate caught a man in the chest. He went backwards, and it crushed him into the ground. They picked him up, ran him over here to the surgical team. We assisted the surgical team in cracking his chest right there, but unfortunately it ruptured his aorta, and Specialist Disney died on the table right in there. One of the things, that's something to think about every time you all are on Disney Drive. He was the first one to die here, and that's why that road's named for him. We were planning Operation Anaconda at that time. It was going to be a conventional operation assisted by Special Operations Forces on the recon side, as well as our Afghan partners. It was going to be a classic hammer and anvil movement. One unit was going to stay, the other one was going to sweep through. We're going to do some bad things to bad people, and then hopefully call it a day. On the night of March 3rd, a Navy SEAL recon team was being inserted into the Shai-Kout Valley. When they were on short final, the aircraft started taking massive hits from the bad guys. They pulled pitch, egress the area. When they were doing the battle damage assessment on the helicopter, they figured out we're missing somebody. As soon as they did, the helicopter set down. They were in a flight. They set down, they consolidated on the good aircraft, immediately came back in, landed there, and got the SEAL team off to effect the rescue of their buddy. Unfortunately, during this incident, Tech Sergeant John Chapman was isolated from the team and ended up having to go around doing bad things to bad people all by himself. He ended up in a defensive fighting position, was killing bad guys. When an RPG hit his position, he was incapacitated. The bad guys overwhelmed him at that point. When all this happened, the Quick Reaction Force was launched out of here. The QRF consisted of 2 squads of Rangers, 1 TAC-P, 1 combat controller, and 2 pararescuemen. When they took off out of here, there were some delays en route. Unfortunately, as a result of those delays, the aircraft ended up arriving over the objective at BMNT, or before morning nautical twilight. Any of y'all have seen when the sky is dark and the ground is light, or the sky is light and the ground is dark? That's when this helicopter was landing. One of the UAV operators was quoted as saying that helo just became an RPG sponge. They were taking fire from so close that one of the RPGs didn't arm itself when it hit the aircraft. That's how close the bad guys were when they were firing it. The aircraft commander took a round right through the webbing in his finger, and it blew off a baseball-sized chunk of the lower portion of his arm. With the primary flight controls and the primary air crew both incapacitated, the aircraft ended up crashing. Sfils Vitak was the gunner on the right side of the aircraft. He let out a burst with the minigun. Because of that, the team thought that the threat was off the right side of the helicopter. They came off the right side. They came off the ramp of the helicopter, executed a hard left turn, went to go do what Rangers do, and what they did not realize, the real threat was at the 7 o'clock position at about 100 meters off, 150 meters off. There was an RPK, which is the Russian version of an M240. From that moment on, it got really bad. So the guys were doing what they had to do. They were taking care of each other. They were saving lives, trying to rescue the air crew. We're going to go ahead and stop the story there. This way we can start, because this is honestly how it happened. On the 3rd is when everybody started moving. All the air assets started rolling into theater. Everything started happening from this moment on. But what I want you to think about is the men that launched that day. We're talking about 3 different services, 5 different specialties, and they're all focused on one goal: to rescue Americans. One of the things I want you to also consider is the fact that when it comes to mottos, sayings, creeds, they all pretty much mean the same thing, especially when you're dealing with dedicated men like they're over there in the compound. Night Stalkers, don't quit. Rangers, lead the way, that others may live. I'd like to leave you with a quote from General Patton, who said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn these men, but rather we should thank God that such men lived." Thank you.
Thank you, Master Sergeant Young. Chaplain Braswell will now give a blessing over the event and loved ones of the fallen.
If you will, please pray with me. Almighty God, we thank you for the grace, the mercy, and the protection that you have bestowed upon us during this deployment. As we gather together today, we humbly acknowledge our dependence upon you. We give you praise and thanksgiving for your never-ending love and your abiding presence in our lives. We have come together today to honor the memory of those who bravely entered combat during Operation Anaconda and paid the supreme sacrifice in the defense of the United States. How great and humbling is our debt to those who bravely faced the enemy so that others might live and that American freedoms would be preserved. May their courage, selfless service, and devotion to duty Be an example for each of us as we serve you, our fellow man, and the United States of America. We thank you for the homes from which these heroes came, for the love of home which sustained them, and for the love of God which upheld them. We ask that you would comfort their families, friends, and loved ones who grieve even today. And we pray that your presence would guide them and strengthen them in future days of sorrow. Finally, Lord, we pray for clear skies and moderate weather and the safety of all those participating in this memorial run. For it is in the name that is above every other name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Braswell. The first leg of the formation will now begin and will carry the American flag along with a baton that has the names of the 7 servicemen who gave the ultimate sacrifice engraved on it. The American flag and the baton will be carried and passed the entire 24 hours. Please join us back here tomorrow at 1600 for the final piece of the Operation Anaconda Remembrance Ceremony. Thank you.
Detail. Attitude. But no. Face. Rangers lead the way. Forward. Arch.
That concludes today's ceremony.
There we go. Go that way.
Start staring at me.
Turn around, keep going. That way, that way. That way.
Highly dedicated.
What time do you have? Make sure we're on the same clock.
Motivated airmen staring at me.
Oh. How are you?
Morning, guys. Morning. Hey, we're good.
You guys doing okay?
Yeah, team.
All right, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this afternoon ceremony. I am Master Sergeant Ann Mitchell from the 455th Air Expeditionary Force Support Squadron, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. In a few minutes, the last leg of the 24-hour memorial run, comprised of multi-service personnel, will be returning. As the formation approaches, we would like to remind everyone to render the proper customs and courtesies, and salute the American flag as it approaches. At this time, we would like to recognize our distinguished guests we are honored to have with us today. The Commander, Bagram Airfield, Major General Mike Murray. The Commander, 455th Air Expeditionary Wing, Brigadier General Mark Kelly. The Command Chief, Master Sergeant, United States Air Force, Central Command, Southwest Asia, Chief Master Sergeant Raymond Colon Lopez. The Senior Enlisted Leader to Command, Commander Bagram Airfield, Command Sergeant Major Christopher Gilpin. The Acting Command Chief Master Sergeant, 455th Air Expeditionary Wing, Chief Master Sergeant Bobby Bankston. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to all commanders, chiefs, first sergeants, coalition partners, and all the members who have taken time out of their day today to attend today's ceremony. Today, the men and women of the 455th Air Expeditionary Wing in Bagram Airfield gather to remember those who lost their lives during Operation Anaconda, to include one of our very own, Senior Airman Jason Cunningham. Our host for today's ceremony is Brigadier General Mark Kelly, Commander, 455th Air Expeditionary Wing. Please take your seats.
Great. Rest.
On this day, 13 years ago, Senior Airman Jason Cunningham and 6 others gave their lives so others may live. The engagement they gave their lives during is commonly called Roberts Ridge, which was a part of Operation Anaconda. At this time, please help me welcome Master Sergeant Chris Young, 83rd Expeditionary Rescue Squadron, Pararescue Senior Enlisted Manager.
Can y'all hear me okay? Excellent. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about everything that was going on. Most important thing that I want y'all to understand is I want the 5-6 Club to recognize how much this means to us. Because this originally started off as a Jason Cunningham event. We morphed it into an Operation Anaconda event to represent everybody that was part of that operation. And I think they should be recognized for that. So please give them a round of applause. Just as a recap from yesterday, one of the things that was occurring was as the Navy SEAL recon team was about to land in the Shaw-Yakout Valley, they were shot off the LZ. When they were doing a battle damage assessment on the aircraft, they recognized that they were missing somebody, which was Petty Officer Neil Roberts. Immediately, without hesitation, they decided we have to go back and get him. They landed the aircraft, consolidated assets, and brought another helicopter back into that landing zone, and under heavy fire, they inserted the team to look for their buddy. At that point, that's when Tech Sergeant Chapman was isolated. He ended up fighting off the enemy for as long as he could, was incapacitated, and then was overwhelmed by his injuries. The QRF launched, or the Quick Reaction Force launched out of here. In an effort to get there, there were some delays. They arrived at before morning nautical twilight, which is that time of the day when the sky is light, but the ground is still dark. The RPA operator was quoted as saying, "The helo is an RPG sponge." At that point, they crashed as a result of losing primary flight controls and primary air crew. And then we talked about the initial movement off the helicopter. Let's back up a little bit. Following the rescue of Ditka 03 and MC-130 in February, at that point, I gave up being the team leader here, went up to Karshi-Kanabad in Uzbekistan, and I gave the team over to a man named Kerry Miller. From up there, one of the last things I commanded him was, as the lessons learned from Mogadishu, you're going to have your armor plates in, fore and back. I don't care if you've got a radio on, a med bruck on, no matter what. Everybody's going to have their chicken plates on. While I was up there, I was notified that the QRF was shot down. Immediately moved in, so we started listening to the radios, monitoring everything that was going on. And it was amazing how, at that moment, once things went bad, everybody became one solid team. One of the most heartbreaking things I heard on the radio were pilots begging the tankers for gas because they still had ordnance on their wings. They had to get back in the fight, but they just didn't have the gas for it. Tanker had to wave them off. They bingoed out and they had to go home. While we were up there, the squadron commander at the time ordered myself and another combat controller to get down there as quickly as possible to assist in the rescue. We hopped on a C-130 out of K2. We landed here right as the helicopters were pulling pitch for the mission. Once I realized there was no way to get back on those helicopters, I did the best thing that I could do. Right over here, I established the casualty collection point. Our combat controller set up the SATCOM antenna. We got on the radio to Task Force Dagger at the time, and then just kept them abreast of what everything was going on. The first helos that came in carried the criticals. At this point, I knew that one of the PJs had been shot, didn't know which one. As the criticals landed, that's when I got the word one of the PJs was killed. I still didn't know which one. First guy I saw coming off that helicopter was Kerry Miller. So once I saw Kerry walking, I knew for a fact it was Jason. I walked up, I was like, what happened? And he goes, Jason got shot. And I said, where? He said, in the back. I said, why the hell didn't he have his chicken plates on? And he goes, he did. Jason had on everything he was supposed to have on. And this is one of the things that when it's your time, you have to understand it. Jason Cunningham was surrounded by Rangers, flying with arguably the best helicopter pilots in the world, in direct support of his SEAL team, with all of his PPE on. And that round came in right below his body armor, went transpelvic, and he ended up expiring on the mountain that night. He did everything he could to save lives. The Rangers did everything they could to save lives. We did everything we could that night to get them out as quickly as possible. One of the things I encourage you all to do is read about the successes and failures of Operation Anaconda, whether it be from leadership or communications or whatever. Find what it is that made that operation succeed and parts of that operation fail. Learn, get better. The men that went up there that night, they weren't looking to be called heroes. But if the lessons learned from Operation Anaconda can help us as leaders move forward, save lives, and conduct better operations, I'm quite positive that they would all be pleased for that. One of the things when I kind of hijacked this event from the 5-6 Club, once again, sorry about that, y'all. I wanted to start and end right here at the tower. The reason for that is if you all take a look right over there at those two trees, right there at the corner of the gym, we had a general purpose medium tent set up right there. That's where the mortuary was. That operation ended right here, right there. The dead came down, they were laid in that tent right there. The wounded went into this building right here, and just behind it is we had the Spanish had a hospital as well. The Spanish were working on men there. Representatives from the different services, we all did the paperwork, and one of the most horrible things of my entire career is I know another man's social security number. Because that night, I filled out his name and his social security number and his rank on so many different pieces of paper that it's one of those things that's burned into my memory forever. At that point, once the paperwork was done, we put our friends in bags, we put our friends in coffins, and we carried them to the C-17. C-17 was right out here on the ramp. Ramp looked nothing like it does now. And we all took a moment to say goodbye. At that point, the sun was coming up, and C-17 took off in that toilet bowl departure that we used to have to do in the end of the war, or the beginning. One of the things about that event for me is time is compressed. From the moment they woke me up at K2 and said the QRF got shot down to the moment that C-17 was climbing out of here, I have no clue how much time it was. And to be honest with you, I don't want to know. That whole day is just kind of gelled into one horrible and terrific moment. But I want to share that with you because some of the most horrible moments you live through, there are always good things that can be gained from it. Following the operation, there were multiple investigations. One of the first things that I had to answer as a CSAR team leader was why was an ACC senior airman involved in a JSOC operation? Ironically, the answer was easy. The answer was child's play. Because combat search and rescue is combat search and rescue. I don't care who my customer is, you go down, we'll come get you. That's what we do. Jason earned the right to be on that mission. He earned the right to be on that mission for no other reason than he was a PJ. He distinguished himself on that mission. He proved he was just as good as all the other men that were on the mountain that night, as well as the other men from different MAGCOMs. Ironically, Jason's buried next to Matt Commons in Arlington National Cemetery. I didn't know that because I was still here when that occurred. Their platoon had actually rotated home as part of the ceremonies and stuff. Their platoon commander sent me a picture. So if you all ever go to Arlington, you're going to see Jason's headstone, and right next to it is Matt Commons. Their platoon sergeant sent me a picture. I sent it back to him, sent a reply back to him, and it said, "It's amazing. A Ranger watching over a PJ for eternity." Ranger platoon sergeant responded, "If I cried, That would have made me cry. In conclusion, I ask you to do a couple of things. Break down the walls between you, your services, your specialties, your chains of command, your pay grades. Break down those chains, or those walls. Let these men sacrifice teach us all something about leadership. For the officers and the senior NCOs, let your people make mistakes. Let them learn from them. Because good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. For the NCOs that are out there, teach as much as you can. Don't hoard knowledge. Don't try and be that guy that knows everything. Teach as much as you can, because a candle loses none of its brightness by lighting another candle. And finally, to the junior enlisted that are out there, your job's simple. Do good, don't suck, have fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Master Sergeant Young. Please stand for the reading of Senior Airman Cunningham's Air Force Cross Medal Citation and remain standing for the final roll call. Attention to orders.
Details.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Title 10, Section 8742, USC, awards the Air Force Cross to Senior Airman Jason D. Cunningham for extraordinary heroism in military operations against an opposing armed force while serving as a pararescueman near the village of Marsak in the Paktia province of Afghanistan on 4 March 2002. On that proud day, Airman Cunningham was the primary Air Force Combat Search and Rescue medic assigned to a quick reaction force tasked to recover 2 American servicemen evading capture in austere terrain occupied by mass Al-Qaeda and Taliban forces. Shortly before landing, his MH-47E helicopter received accurate rocket-propelled grenade and small arms fire, severely disabling the aircraft and causing it to crash land. The assault force formed a hasty defense and immediately suffered 3 fatalities and 5 critical casualties. Despite effective enemy fire and great risk to his own life, Airman Cunningham remained in the burning fuselage of the aircraft in order to treat the wounded. As he moved his patients to a more secure location, mortar rounds began to impact within 50 feet of his position. Disregarding this extreme danger, he continued the movement and exposed himself to enemy fire on 7 separate occasions. When the second casualty collection point was also compromised, in a display of uncommon valor and gallantry, Airman Cunningham braved an intense small arms fire, rocket-propelled grenade attack, while repositioning the critically wounded to a 3rd collection point. Even after he was mortally wounded and quickly deteriorating, he continued to direct patient movement and transferred care to another medic. In the end, his distinct efforts led to the successful delivery of 10 gravely wounded Americans to life-saving medical treatment. Through his extraordinary heroism, superb airmanship, aggressiveness in the face of the enemy, and the dedication of his service to country, Senior Airman Cunningham reflected the highest credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. At this time, we'd like to bring Master Sergeant Young back up to conduct the final roll call.
Lieutenant Shear.
Here.
Tech Sergeant Robinson.
Here.
Staff Sergeant Coleman.
Here.
Staff Sergeant Davis.
Here.
Sergeant Ulrich.
Here.
Specialist Griffin.
Here.
Specialist Iachetta.
Here.
Senior Airman Yoakum.
Here.
Senior Airman McKinney.
Here.
Senior Airman Capalos.
Here.
Senior Airman Trop.
Here.
Tech Sergeant Chapman. Tech Sergeant John Chapman. Tech Sergeant John A. Chapman. Petty Officer Roberts. Petty Officer Neil Roberts. Petty Officer Neil C. Roberts. Sergeant Crows. Sergeant Bradley Crows. Sergeant Bradley S. Crows. Sergeant Svitak. Sergeant Philip Svitak. Sergeant Philip J. Svitak. Specialist Anderson. Specialist Mark Anderson. Specialist Mark A. Anderson. Corporal Commons. Corporal Matthew Commons. Corporal Matthew A. Commons. Senior Airman Cunningham. Senior Airman Jason Cunningham. Senior Airman Jason D. Cunningham.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Those that have fallen but are not forgotten. Tech Sergeant John A. Chapman, assigned to the 24th Special Tactics Squadron, Hope Air Force Base, North Carolina. Petty Officer First Class Neil C. Roberts, assigned to SEAL Team 2, Norfolk, Virginia. Sergeant Bradley S. Gross, assigned to 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, Hunter Army Airfield, Georgia. Sergeant Philip J. Svitak, assigned to 2nd Battalion, 160th Special Operations Regiment, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Specialist Mark A. Anderson, assigned to 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, Hunter Army Airfield, Georgia. Corporal Matthew A. Commons, assigned to 1st Battalion, A Company, Hunter Army Air Base, Georgia. Senior Airman Jason D. Cunningham, assigned to the 38th Rescue Squadron, Moody Air Force Base, Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the Commander, 455th Air Expeditionary Wing, Brigadier General Mark Kelly, for closing remarks and to conduct the final retreat ceremony.
Well, a great welcome to all who've taken time to be here today, to honor those who gave every one of their tomorrows for someone else's today. Thanks to everyone who coordinated the run and this ceremony. It's important that we pause and recognize, remember this level of service, this level of sacrifice from the best that our land, our sea, and our air components and services have to offer. Some people wonder why our PJ, our combat controller, our ranger, our SEAL training is so rigorous. These 7 knew why, and we'd be standing here in front of 17 pictures if that training was anything less. Many of you have read the events of Operation Anaconda, Roberts Ridge, Takur Ghar, and heard a bit of that time here today and yesterday. 13 years ago, we didn't know the name of that mountain. It was simply a piece of key terrain on a map that we carried, and it had the title of Objective Ginger. I'm fortunate here each day that I get to meet and I speak with the phenomenal sons and daughters that our nation has sent here to Bagram. And I was fortunate to be flying here in 2001 and 2002. So today I'd like to convey the words not of a wing commander or general officer, but of a much younger major who flew here during this time. Because these words were scribed 13 years ago on a 3.5-hour trek back to Al Jabra, Kuwait, after flying during the evening of 4th March of 2002 It was about 20 hours after things started to go bad on Ginger. And we returned to Kuwait during the early hours of the 5th of March 2002, and they've shaped every thought, every decision I've made over the past 13 years. 5 March 2002, Pac Boulevard South, Operation Anaconda, Marzak, Paktia. A chaotic fight today. Most of what we executed was unplanned, unbriefed, unconventional, unauthorized, and sadly unfortunate. Several JTACs had to transmit in the clear due to frag damage to their radios. We split to singletons to cover the ticks. Tankers directly overhead helped a lot. Escorted 2 damaged Apaches back towards Bagram. 1 made it all the way. 1 had to sit down in a riverbed to add oil. They restarted and made it back. Amazing. All 6 had rotor blade damage and several had shattered windscreens. When the fight broke down, deconfliction broke down. JDAMs came through the stack, and Predators pushed in below the weather and through our altitude to get eyes on the target. 1 bomb from a pair of Mark 82s airbursted early over Texas 1-4. That was a call sign of some of our JTACs, which caused a lot of unneeded excitement. First strafe pass was too steep, off dry, others were good. Had to put the CBU-87, which was one of our cluster munitions, on the whaleback due to proximity to friendly forces in Al-Qaeda. I'll call the Ranger 75th talk tomorrow to chat. Junior and Panzer stayed over the down Chinook for their goal. Junior was a major with me here. He's now Brigadier General Junior Short, Wing Commander at Ellis. Chinook is still there on Objective Ginger. The AC-130, call sign Grim, over the fight is a game changer. And they put us on targets that JTAC simply couldn't see. Good handoff with the Navy Tomcats. They were dropping in 5 minutes. I don't know what more we could have done today, but I know it wasn't enough. Checked out with AWACS and JSTARS. JSTARS relayed that there were 5 heroes near the Chinook. AWACS said 8, and many more wounded. (1,200 nautical miles to Al Jaber. A vast majority of those notes, those thoughts, are just simple, immediate, tactical level recollections of an aviator on the way home. I remember most of them, not all of them, but only one really sticks with me. Quote, "I don't know what else we could have done, but I know it wasn't enough." So today, when our Siege of SOAC, our SOTF, our coalition teammates take the field, there is no limit to what we'll commit. That thought has never waned over 13 years. What else can we do? Not just to bring them out safely, but to honor the service and sacrifice of those in the field 13 years ago when we simply couldn't do enough. More important than the words of a wing commander or a major are the words of a young wife. So I'd like to relay the words and thoughts from Teresa Cunningham, who along with her daughters, Kyle and Hannah, and the families of these 7 American sons, gave more for this day than anyone standing here. Quote, "Jason believed in what he and what you all are doing. He believed in service and he was grateful for the opportunity to make a difference. The night before he left for Afghanistan, I asked him why him? How could any other life matter more than his? Selfishly, I told him I didn't care about those others, and he said, Teresa, those pilots, the crews, the soldiers, they go forth and know that if something happens, someone is coming for them. Wouldn't you want to know that I won't be left behind?" It's unfortunate, but maybe fitting, that our rescue squadron can't be here today. They're forward deployed here in Afghanistan, always on the line of scrimmage, so that others may live. So the character of our service, the actions we take, the decisions we make, must hold up to the litmus of those we're here to remember. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and we must be worthy in their eyes. One quick admin item. Master Sergeant Young, if you come, stand there, face me. You're a little old for a Master Sergeant. You're a senior Master Sergeant. Line number 56. Thanks. What better day to find out? Thanks for your attendance today. Thanks for your service to a nation still at war.
Thank you, Brigadier General Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of To the Colors.
Detail. No, yeah.
Forward, halt. Detail. Halt. Left, face. Stand at ease.
Sound retreat.
Detail. Stand tight. Present on. Order. Halt.
Order. Art.
Center. Face. away.